And welcome to the Crawford Podcasting Network for a long anticipated episode of Down in the Block to the former Michigan pivot man, Chris Young, number 45, out of Plymouth, Michigan, played for Detroit Catholic Central. And my God, Chris, I forgot what you looked like. You handsome devil, you. I mean, my God,
well,
last time
the beard doesn't help also, I'm trying to, it's kind of like a playoff beard. It's like my COVID beard, the anticipation of waiting on Michigan's next game. I just decided to stop shaving. So
this is crazy. I almost feel like this is like our preseason episode of Down in the Blocks with Chris Young.
yeah.
Because, it's like we're starting all over again.
Yep.
It's been so long since that Friday night, 2.5 weeks ago, whatever it was, and being all giddy about that win over Purdue, 17-point win over Purdue. Mm-hmm. Michigan, of course, when you don't play, you just move up in the rankings. That's kind of what it is.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. Unbelievable.
13-1 and 8-1 in Big Ten play. Still, they're not even halfway home in number of decisions for the entire regular season.
Yeah.
I'm going to cut to the chase here, Chris. Okay, so and you played 4 years, a lot. Every year you played a lot of basketball for the University of Michigan. Started most of the time. From a cardiovascular standpoint, when you're for a couple, basically a couple of weeks, all the guys could probably do is go jogging down State Street. I don't know what they able to do. I mean, how do you make up for that stopping and that stop that burst kind of of activity on a 94-foot floor of basketball, not just jogging, down the street.
Yeah.
Cardio, how do you assimilate that? I mean, that's going to be crazy.
I really don't know. I've been thinking about that a lot over the course of the last, 2 weeks plus. And I don't know how you do that. You can always go run. You can always get into cardio physical shape. But it's another thing to have those bursts of speed going 94 feet and you're going up to the basket and someone's bumping into you.
Yeah.
And it's you're cutting through lane and you're going full speed and someone's bumping into you. And it's how do you respond to that? It's the contact side of it more than anything else. Because like you said, they'll figure out ways to stay in some kind of game shape. They're going to be running, they're going to be doing something. But it's that combination of, running and jumping and shooting. It's working all of those muscle groups all at the same time while getting some contact and knowing that, under a little bit of pressure and, for certain guys, they know if they don't make a shot, they're going to the bench and, all that kind of stuff that you just have to really take into account. As a player, I don't know what I would have done. I mean, I was always the type of player where I needed to practice. I hated practice. I'd always hated practice, but I needed to. I knew that I needed to get those reps in if I wanted to perform in this game. And if I didn't, if something happened where, we didn't have good practice or a coach just decided, we're just going to go a little bit lighter today or something like that, I didn't feel as prepared for the game. So I don't know how they're going to be able to respond. It's a crapshoot. It really is. You look at some of the other teams around the nation that have had, longer delays like this, and you see the guys, they come back and a couple times up and down and they're huffing and puffing.
Well, this is what this is the depth could help. Michigan's a deep team. I mean, there's no question about it. They're a solid 9 deep.
Yep.
They could even go 10 deep. Okay. But, it's just, the idea that they haven't been in, a game situation and then Wisconsin, compounding the problem is, and trust me, I'm not throwing the towel in here and saying Michigan's definitely going to get beat on Sunday at 1 o'clock on CBS, but it's just like everything was going so good, and then all of a sudden this, and and we have no control over the situation. But it's like how, I'm really kind of, it's going to be holding my breath watching that team play because I'm going to tell you why. Because I saw Villanova the first couple of games. I just happened to stumble across it on TV when they came back from their break. And Villanova is really good.
Yes.
Michigan State, when they came back on their 20 game, they were off for 20 day pause. They come back and they play Rutgers.
Yep.
And Chris, that was the worst Michigan State performance I've seen in 40 years. They scored 37 points. They looked horrible. Now they're getting a little bit better, and this is not a vintage Michigan State team, and I'm not even going to pretend to say they are. They're not, and they'll be really lucky to get in the NCAA tournament. But although I think they're going to make a little bit of a run here, at least for a while. But that one, when I watched that State game, it scared the hell out of me from a Michigan perspective. I go, oh shit, this is the same crap that Michigan's going to run into.
Absolutely. Well, and I think the better comparison is actually Villanova, because skill-wise and talent-wise, I think Michigan and Villanova are a lot more similar than Michigan State are. All due respect to the guys at Michigan State, this is not a typical Michigan State team that Izzo's had over the course of the last 25 years.
Right.
They're just not, they're just not gelling. These guys playing different positions and trying to figure things out and all that. Villanova came back from a 20 or 25-day layoff, something like that, and they just looked like it was the first day of practice. They didn't know which way it was up. They were trying to run sets, and guys were running into each other, and it was just defense. It was all messed up. It was unbelievable to watch a team that's that talented. And the same thing's happening with Michigan State. They're just not. You're not in a rhythm. They're squeaking by and getting these little wins against teams that normally they should beat by 10 or 15. That they're winning by 2, like last night. So it really scares me how Michigan's going to bounce back. Especially with having, a couple freshmen that play fairly significant minutes. That, how's Hunter Dickinson's condition going to be? How's Austin Davis's condition going to be? It's the bigs that I always get concerned about, because for some reason us having these big bodies, that conditioning just gets zapped so fast. And how are you going to respond? How mentally are you going to respond?
Yeah. And it's just, isn't this where leadership, my God, comes the ultimate variable in here? When you look at somebody like Isaiah Livers and the role he's played, Eli Brooks is another one in that category. Is leadership, can that offset that, or is it leadership just going to be, it's a moot point?
No, leadership can definitely offset it. It's going to be those guys saying, slow down, let the game come to you. You're not going to force it. You're not going to get right back on the court and pick right up where you left off. That's just not going to happen for some of the younger guys. The older guys, they might be able to do that. They know the system. They kind of understand how the rhythm of the game goes already. But looking at Hunter Dickinson and even Franz, I just see them having a tough time getting back into it. And I really feel bad for Franz Wagner, because he was really starting to get he was starting to find his shooting touch. He was doing it on all sides of the court. I mean, it just, and it just like last year, it took him until, the middle of January to kind of figure things out. And now, it's a 3-week layoff, and let's see where he's able to come back at. Let's see if Hunter Dickinson was able to kind of get his mind right and get back to playing the way he was playing, 2 weeks before they stopped playing, to where he was, one of the most dominant centers in the entire nation. And then as we got into this COVID break now, he was starting to struggle. Teams were starting to figure him out, and you could see he was kind of getting down on himself. So there's a lot of different aspects. And the problem with not being able to practice, aside from the conditioning, stuff like that, you're just sitting there thinking. You're sitting in your room, you're sitting in your apartment, you're thinking about all these different things. Oh, I need to do this in this situation. I need to do this and this and this. And you kind of work yourself up a little too much. And it's, you get back in the game and you're all excited. And it's like, no, man, you just got to calm down, let the game happen. So, and I don't envy them. There's been a lot of times over the course of the last, almost 20 years that I wish I was back in college and wanted to go back and play and stuff like that. This is not one of those times.
Well, I tell you what,
this is too far outside of everything that I had ever experienced that there's no way.
You former players are probably looking at this like, God, thank God this, I didn't have to go through this stuff. That would be driving me insane. I've heard that from a few players I've talked to. The good news of this whole thing, Chris Young, is that Michigan, at least by not playing, has created some separation. Now, Ohio State has 4 losses. 3 losses behind Michigan in the standing, and yet they're 4th in the country. This is a firecracker hot team in college basketball. They went on the road, Chris, and I think that they've beaten 4 ranked teams on the road, consecutively. That's a team that scares me. And they play, next weekend. Michigan goes to Columbus. Okay. But Illinois still is Illinois, and we're going to talk about Iowa in a second. Like, hello down there, they're just like falling down
they're imploding.
The shaft here, the elevator shaft. It's crazy, but Illinois, thank God they're not playing them this week like they were slated to play them.
Yes.
Actually, I think it might have been yesterday initially. I'm
Tomorrow.
Trying to think.
They were supposed
Tomorrow.
to play tomorrow.
Yeah. So that's not happening. So when when you look at the standings, though, I mean, if you take yourself out of, the former player, the the basketball expert as a player, and you wore that uniform, would you pick Michigan to win the Big Ten title as it sits right now?
As it sits right now, I would say yes, just because they've had those 3 weeks where you mentioned Iowa. They're just falling apart. Luka Garza was by far the most dominant player in the country for the first 2 months of the season, and they went through a stretch the other night where they forgot he was even on the floor. He ended up with 14 or something like that because he was hunting his shot at the end of the game instead of the ball just going to him every time. They're getting away from what made them very good. There's going to be teams that get banged up. There's going to be little injuries. There's going to be star players, whether it's DeSumer or whomever, that they're banged up, they can't play because they haven't had this little bit of a break. I think this little bit of a break would be could possibly be a positive for Michigan if we're able to figure things back out quickly.
I want to probe into Iowa a little bit because, I mean, Fran McCaffrey, all we've been hearing about this team, they scared the hell out of me early in the year, and I saw. I saw them play Gonzaga, and Gonzaga is, arguably one of the best, maybe the best team in the country, and they lost. But, other than, early on, they were like really dominant. And Luka Garza looked like, the next dominant player, going into the NBA that was going to have, a 15-year career and all that other, all-star appearances and the whole bit. But, man, did they look disheveled. And then when I did some research, I had forgotten about this. They haven't won a Big Ten title in that program since 1979. Iowa. I mean, holy cow! Why is Iowa soft? Why does Iowa do this every year? They do. They're in the tournament. They typically get in a tournament. How come they seem to fade in February? Don't you think?
It's like they run out of gas. Like they came out of the gate this year, and like you said, they played Gonzaga. It was like the second game of the season or something like that. I mean, real early, and you could tell that they were going to be good, but they weren't quite there yet. And then all of a sudden they turned it on, and I didn't think there was anybody in the country that could beat them. I mean, the way Garza was playing and McCaffrey and the way they were shooting the ball, and it was just like, this team is just there's just something amazing about that team. And like you said, they get in the end of January and now into February, and if you compare them on tape side by side, you wouldn't think it's the same team. The way that they're playing, it just kind of falls apart. And I got to put that on the coach. He's the one that's controlling the levers of power. He's the one calling the plays. He's the one putting guys in different situations. I don't know if he's practicing them too much and they're just worn out by this point or what it is, but
he's feeling the pressure.
The wheels are coming off.
And he's
I don't know if he just kept reading all the press readings that potential coach of the year and all kinds of stuff and all this other stuff because coaches read that stuff as much as players do. And I don't know. It's not the same team it was 6 weeks ago.
I saw. I mean, you can tell Franny there was getting a little frantic. He got real snippy, got pissy a little bit with one of the media guys from Des Moines, I think, or one of the local guys has been around there, he got his, just for asking a legitimate question. You can tell that he's feeling the pressure. I mean, Iowa is 7-5. They are 4 back in the loss column. Now they play Michigan State Saturday, and Michigan State actually easily could have beaten them at Carver Hawkeye, and now they're coming back to the Breslin. That's going to be a very interesting game. That's a must-win game for Iowa to stay in the race. But when you look at so Illinois, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Purdue, is that the order of threat that those teams pose Michigan, or is Ohio State a nudge ahead of Illinois in your mind?
I would have to say Ohio State's a little bit ahead of Illinois just because how hot they've been lately. They've been.
Dwayne Washington's a great player. They got some good players.
They are just, and Ohio State's kind of a team that everyone kind of overlooked. We figured they'd be middle of the pack, something like that in the Big Ten, and maybe win some games they're not supposed to, but then lose to Nebraska or something like that. That's not supposed to happen, and they're really good. They're playing really well together. I don't know. I think right now they're the bigger threat.
Oh yeah, there's no question.
I'm not real excited about playing DeSumo and Kaufburn, the big guy from Illinois. I'm not excited about playing them at all, but I'm less excited about playing Ohio State.
Okay, so
it'd be one thing if this COVID break didn't happen. Then I'd be like, man, bring them on. We got them. It's not a problem. We might lose by a couple, but there's no chance we're getting blown out by anybody. But now it's a crapshoot.
I'm going to do this little exercise we did a few weeks ago. I can't remember the games, but we said, it was actually surrounded the game at Minneapolis at Michigan lost. And I think both you and I were in agreement. Let's just take 2 or 3. And they did get 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
Okay. So it worked out. So this coming up, Wisconsin on Sunday, and then you got Rutgers, I think, on Thursday, and then Ohio State on the weekend. So you got those 3 tough games in the span of 7 days or whatever. For 2 out of 3, sign me up, right?
100%. 100%. Yeah. 2 out of 3. I mean, that's really doing something special. And
2 on the road.
And looking at it, if that Rutgers game was in Piscataway, oh my gosh. Because there's something about Rutgers, man. They play so different at home. It's like they're 2 different teams. So fortunately, they're coming to Chrysler. But man, that's there's no easy stretches in the Big Ten, but then coming off this break and getting right into this is brutal. I mean, this is
okay. So I'm going to go further on. I say, as much as I want, I really would be happy with 2 out of 3. I'm fearing 1 out of 3, and I'm fearing that they'll beat Rutgers but lose to Whiskey and Ohio State. Okay, and hope I'm wrong. Well, God forbid, I hope they lose. If they lost all 3 of them, I would take that. But say they won 1 out of 3, they'd be 9-3. Is what Illinois' record is right now. And that would be a week from now. So you start catching up in the game count. Okay. I think if they got 1 out of 3, they're going to win the Big Ten title. And the reason I say that, Chris, is because then they'll be back in the groove. Because they're going to get back in the groove. Just by participation alone.
Well, and look at their schedule too. I mean, they've got, after they play Ohio State on Sunday the 21st, they've got a week where there's no games. Then they play Indiana on Saturday, so they're going to throw one of these games back in there, whether it's Penn State or whoever it is. They might even go crazy and throw 2 games in there. So they're going to get back into this rhythm real quick. It's just a matter of weathering this 1 week storm that we're going to have. And like you said, I would love 2 and 1, but unfortunately, I think 1 and 2 is probably more realistic, just because Wisconsin's just going to try and run them out of the gym. They got all seniors, they've got all this experience and this and this and this. Plus they're pissed off. Plus all the other stuff. They're gonna come at them as hard as they possibly can because they're third in the country. They're gonna bring everything they've got to try and beat Michigan.
But you know what? When I watch Wisconsin, without any elite, just looking at them, just totally, from an analytical standpoint, they're tough to watch. I mean, they're not very good at a lot of times. So that's why I think Michigan can beat them.
They're what Wisconsin has always been. When I came in as a freshman, we're going through practice and stuff like that, and we're prepping to play Wisconsin, and they'd get, the team we were playing against would get an offensive rebound, the scout team or whatever, and the coach would be screaming at them, "Bring it back out, work it back around." And I'm a freshman, like, man, what the hell? Let's score. I was like, no, they got to work it back around. They got to work that entire shot clock again. They could go a minute and a half on 2 offensive rebounds and just keep working the clock. And that's kind of how this team is. They don't like to shoot quick. They don't like to get into their offense fast, but they're not pretty about the way they do anything. They don't have flash. They don't have a guy like a DeSumo who's going to be out there doing all these, really amazing plays and super athletic and all this kind of stuff. Right. They just have, 5 Grizzly seniors, a couple guys coming off the bench that are just tough, hard nosed, and they play the way, Wisconsin's always played. And that just makes them tough.
Okay. I'm gonna throw the 9 players at you. Livers Dickinson, Mike Smith, Franz Wagner, Eli Brooks, Austin Davis, Shawnee Brown, Brandon Johns Jr., and Terrence Williams, T. Will, the dude. Okay. Of those 9 guys, who is the guy that maybe we're not expecting to deliver, who could all of a sudden be that shining star, a prominent player going this back half of the season?
I got to go with Brandon Johns Jr.
You do?
Yep,
Good guess.
that's my horse. You know, you kind of know what to expect. Austin Davis is going to do his thing. You know that. You know, Livers and Eli Brooks and Mike Smith, they're seniors. They're going to come out there. They know they've only got a couple weeks left of college basketball.
Right.
You know, they're going to get everything they've got. You know, Franz, we kind of know what we're going to get. Hunter Dickinson, right now, it's kind of a flip of a coin. We don't know what we're going to get.
Right.
You know, Brandon Johns Jr., I think he's the X factor. He's the guy that could potentially come in and, you know, he drops 20 at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Because he's got that ability. You know, the way that he plays and stuff like that, he doesn't really need rhythm. He doesn't really necessarily need to feel the ball and feel the court and stuff like that. If he gets an open shot and he makes it, he's going to get another open shot. And if he makes it and he gets an offensive rebound and he plays a little defense, you know, all of a sudden he could turn it on and have 20. Yeah. So I think he's the guy that, especially in this next stretch, that could really jump up and surprise people. Because you know, I've been in enough, you know, scouting meetings and stuff like that. Somebody like Brandon Johns, you mentioned him, don't let him get an open shot and stuff like that. But he's kind of a, you know, he's there, but he's not, you know, we're not worried about Dickinson that could put up 30. We're worried about Livers. We're worried about these guys. You know, Brandon Johns, you know, keep an eye on him, but don't worry about him. So he's got that ability to kind of sneak up on you. So
he's not a household name in Big Ten basketball.
That's for sure. You know, everyone knows that he's capable, but he doesn't show it. But you know, a couple times a year. So we'll see.
Well, we're gonna actually mimic the Michigan basketball program, Chris, because we've been off a while. And I will say, if Michigan basketball gets back in rhythm as good as you did today on this broadcast of Down in the Blocks, not missing a beat, you still, you know, you're at midseason form. I think the Wolverines are in good shape. But what I thought, just for our listeners out there, we're going to kind of, you know, and based on your availability, ramp it up, maybe get a couple of the Down in the Blocks in per week to match the Michigan makeup schedule. And so maybe early in the week after the Wisconsin game, and between that and the Rutgers game, and squeeze another one in there and get caught up and get your input as a former Wolverine and expert extraordinaire on the Wolverine basketball program and where you think it's headed down the side, because this is a really good team, and I want to finish.
I'm really looking forward to watching this game on Sunday, and then I'm really looking forward to doing the podcast on Monday to talk about it, because God, it could be really good or it could be really bad, but regardless, we're gonna have all kinds of stuff to talk about. So fingers crossed, and you know, we'll see. You know, that's about all you can say at this point, because you don't know. You really don't. I mean, it's going to be an interesting one. You know, Rutgers is playing Iowa here in about a half hour or so.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
And turn that game on and see how that one looks. You know, unfortunately, Wisconsin's playing Nebraska, and you know, all due respect to what Nebraska is trying to do out there, they're a couple years away. You know, it'd be nice if Wisconsin was playing. You know, if they were playing at Illinois, or they had a tough road game that they had to, you know, kind of bounce back from. But you know, this is for all intents and purposes a scrimmage for them. So
get tuned up. Anyway, CY, you did a tremendous job again, mid-season form, and we'll talk to you. Let's try to do this on Monday night if your schedule allows, and break that down. Hopefully, a victory for the Wolverines, third ranked in the country, no less.
Unbelievable.
They take on the Wisconsin Badgers. That game is on CBS on Sunday. Anyway, be safe, my friend, with your family, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay.
And, as always, go blue.